I'm going to show you a few different ways to wrap your hands with canvas wraps. So, these are 5 meters long. They also come in 3 meters. I'd recommend get the longer ones because it gives you more options. So, notice it's got some Velcro over here. Just unwind the whole thing. And notice on this end, there is a loop. Okay? The first wrap I'm going to show you, we're going to put our thumb in the loop. And notice there's a seam right here. So I want that seam against my palm. And if anyone tells you this is the correct way to wrap hands, and there's no other way, that's a lie. There are a bunch of correct ways to wrap hands. So I put this over here. The most important thing is that we reinforce the wrist. The second most important thing, that we connect the metacarpals and the knuckles to the wrist. So I'm gonna come up here, put it around my palm, wrap it around the upper hand, and now I'll make this X pattern coming back down to the wrist. I'll put another wrap around the wrist. All right, inside the boxing glove, the thumb is separated from the rest of the hand. So I'm going to reinforce that. Okay, put a wrap around the thumb. Okay, I'm going to put another one around the wrist. Now, for this particular style of wrap, I'm going to go in between the fingers.
Slow down a little.
All right, so this is going to come in there. I'm going to pinch that together, put it between the pinky and the ring finger. I'm going to make a tight fist so it's not cutting into the webbing in between my fingers when I pull it tight. Now I'll loosen. It's very important as we put on any style of wrap, flex the fingers. Notice they're not relaxed. If you do that, it's going to be too tight and cut off your circulation. So flex them wide. Next one's going to come in between the ring finger and the middle finger. So on this side, see what I'm doing? I pull it around the thumb, I make a fist again, keep that in place. I'll go around the wrist again. So most of these wraps are going around the wrist. Now I'll go between the index and the middle finger, make that tight fist, pull it around the wrist again. Now to secure that, I'll do another wrap around the top of the hand. This particular style of wrap, it's a Mexican style wrap, so it's got a little bit of stretch to it. So this one can go on a lot tighter. If we want, we can put another wrap on the thumb, that's optional. But most importantly, reinforce the wrist. Now with the rest of this, I'm going to put the rest on my wrist, securing that joint so that it doesn't bend unintentionally. I still want the option to bend my wrist, but I don't want it to wobble. So when I curl the wrist down a little bit, now it's in a perfect position with proper bone alignment, okay, as opposed to doing something like that, twisting off to the side. So nice and straight. So when I make a fist, curl my wrist down ever so slightly, yeah, it should feel rock solid. So now I'm going to ignore this loop, and I'm going to make a stack of wadding. Fold it over like 4 or 5 times, okay? And now I'm gonna put that on top of my knuckles, okay? This is kind of tricky to do by yourself. If you have a partner to help you out, even better. But I'm gonna wrap this around my knuckles, okay? Now, I'm going to go around the wrist. I'm going to go back up here, secure this back up high. I'm going to go back around the wrist. So this is a very useful wrap if you're using MMA gloves. Generally, I don't use canvas wraps with MMA gloves because I don't do my bag work with MMA gloves usually. And I don't do sparring with canvas wraps because that's so you can punch harder. And most of my sparring is light contact. Don't want to injure your training partners. So next, I'm going to pinch this and I'm going to go between the fingers and secure that pile of wadding to my knuckles. So go around again, making a fist each time I go through the fingers. so it doesn't get too tight and cut into the webbing of my hand. Go around there again, flexing. Now I go back around the hand, and then back down here, tying it up at the wrist. But if you are going to use canvas wraps with your MMA gloves, this is a good option because it leaves your thumb really free, supports the wrist, gives you some padding over the knuckles, and allows you to grapple. So if you're fighting in competition, you won't use canvas wraps, you'll use gauze and sports tape. But if you want to emulate that, that's about as close as you're going to get with a canvas wrap. If those previous two methods were too complicated, I'll show you a simple one. And this is a 5-meter wrap, but you can do this one with a 3-meter wrap as well. The focus of this is entirely on securing the wrist to the metacarpals and the knuckles. So loop on the thumb, and I'm going to secure the wrist. I can go around that 3, 4, 5 times depending on how long the wrap is. I'm going to put extra wraps on here since it's 5 meters. And then I'm going to go around the hand and then back down in a crisscross pattern. Okay. I'm not going to bother with the thumb. All I'm going to do is basically tie the knuckles to the wrist. Connect those 2 points. The wrist joint, solidifying that, connecting it to the top of the hand. Again, it's very simple. Just binding the wrist, binding the knuckles with a crisscross. I don't want to put too much on here because if there's a whole load of wadding right here, it's going to be hard to ball your hand up in a fist inside the glove. So if there's a bunch of extra, I'll put most of that onto the wrist. I can put a little bit on my forearm if I want. Not too tight, I don't want to cut off circulation, but just a little bit of compression on the tendons right there. So again, that's a really simple wrap you can do with either a 3-meter or a 5-meter one, and that does the most important job of securing the knuckles to the wrist and securing this wrist so it's tight when you flex in this position. If you want to add the thumb wrap or 2 thumb wraps, that's fine. If that seems too complicated, this is really all you need inside a boxing glove. As I said before, there are a lot of methods to wrap your hands, not limited to these 3. There are a bunch of cool methods involving 2 wraps per hands. You can use extra wadding on the knuckles. You can use no padding on the knuckles. The most important thing is to support the wrist. And the second most important thing, once again, is to connect your knuckles and the upper hand to the wrist so that it doesn't bend accidentally while throwing punches. Stay safe, train hard, and have fun. Once again, I would not recommend wearing wraps while sparring, because unlike the maniacs that like to pretend sparring is a fight and kill each other, I think that's a terrible idea. Focus on technique and position when you spar, not injuring your training partners. The wraps make your hands a lot harder. They make your strikes a lot more dangerous. Save that for bag work and pad work. You don't need canvas wraps for light technical sparring. You don't. If you're wrecking your hands on your opponent's face, you're punching way too hard. Relax. Take off the wraps. Save it for the bags. All right. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.